What are lectins? In this video, I'm going to tell you what lectins are, how they can affect the body, and why you might want to avoid them while healing the gut. When it comes to chronic illness, you all know that I believe diet plays a foundational role. People do well to avoid processed foods, sugar, and starch, as on a GAPS or gut rebuilding diet, but sometimes there's an overlooked factor that could be a part of your inflammation, gut damaging, and autoimmune picture, and this would be dietary lectins. Lectins are naturally occurring proteins found in many plant-based foods, and a few animal-based ones. We'll talk about that in a bit. They serve as a part of a plant's defense system. So these are these so-called plant's defense chemicals or anti-nutrients that help protect plants from predators. So they can protect plants and they ensure that all the nutrients in the seeds of the plant stay there so that that plant can grow safely once it's planted. But they can disrupt human health, particularly in those who already have inflammation in the gut, digestive issues, or a tendency towards autoimmune conditions. So lectins bind to the carbohydrates found in seeds, legumes, grains, nightshades, and some grain-fed dairy and animal products. They have a sticky property that allows them to bind to cell membranes, and this interferes with our nutrient absorption and can irritate the gut lining, therefore disrupting the immune system. Now, for someone who has a healthy gut and immune system, lectins are going to be harmless. There are plenty of traditional foods that are eaten all around the world that are high in lectins, and the people eating those foods don't seem to have any chronic health issues. And a lot of the foods that are high in lectins have other really beneficial properties. They might be very nutrient dense or provide different sources of fiber that might be beneficial to some people. But again, if you already have a tendency to have a sensitive gut, if you already are struggling with inflammation, if you have a tendency towards autoimmunity, and you are trying to heal your gut, the lectins can simply be exacerbating the inflammation, the leaky gut, and the immune system dysregulation. So again, if you are in good health and have strong digestion, eating small amounts of lectins probably is not going to pose any kind of issue. And once you recover from your health conditions, you can probably eat some in moderation without your issues coming back. But if you are watching this, that is probably not your situation. You probably are struggling with chronic illness or autoimmunity or allergies or other signs of leaky gut. And lectins can be a hidden trigger for persistent symptoms. And this can be true even if you don't have an acute reaction to high lectin foods. It could just be triggering an overall state of inflammation at the body that's going to make you more likely to react to other foods. So lectins can damage the gut barrier. The gut lining has a tendency to be permeable, and this is going to be really exacerbated when there's chronic inflammation. So lectins can bind to some of the cells in the gut lining, disrupting those tight junctions, creating these little microscopic holes, a condition that we commonly call leaky gut. And once the gut is compromised, as you know, toxins, bacteria, and food particles leak into the bloodstream, and this is a major cause of widespread inflammation and allergies and intolerances. Because of this, lectins can be a primary activator for inflammation in the immune system and can directly contribute to autoimmune conditions. Lectins will enter the bloodstream and bind to human tissues, such as the thyroid, pancreas, or in our joints, and then they can trigger an immune response because the proteins in the lectin can bind to receptors in these organs and mimic human cells. And so this is part of this mimicry issue that is a big component to autoimmunity. It's often called molecular mimicry. So things like rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, etc. may be part of this issue. So for a lot of people, lectins might just contribute to an overall state of inflammation. So it can actually exacerbate things like irritable bowel syndrome, diabetes, and even neurological symptoms. So lectins have been shown to travel through the vagus nerve and actually accumulate in the brain. And they may be linked to neurodegenerative conditions like Parkinson's disease. So since the gut and brain are so closely connected, it's the chronic exposure of lectins in our diet which may actually impact our nervous system function and worsen neurological symptoms in sensitive individuals. So, if any of this sounds like you, if you're dealing with chronic inflammation, digestive issues, autoimmune disease, or neurological symptoms, you should at least reduce and potentially eliminate high lectins foods. This is going to give your body a break. It doesn't have to be forever. I've done a lot of work healing my gut, and I eat high lectin foods in moderation without any problems now. But in the short term, it did help me to reduce my intake of lectins and actually eliminate them completely for a while. And this really helped improve inflammation in the gut lining and lowered my incidence of food intolerances and allergic reactions. So, what are high lectin foods? Lectins are mostly in plant foods, especially when they're eaten raw or they're not prepared properly because of lost ancestral knowledge. So the highest sources include grains, and this is all grains. So this is wheat, rice, corn, oats, barley, quinoa. All of these are going to be high in lectins. It's also going to be all legumes, so all beans. So soybeans, black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, lentils, and even peas. It's also going to be the nightshade family of plants. So potatoes are going to be high in lectins, as well as tomatoes, all kinds of peppers, and that includes all the spice-based peppers like chili peppers and paprika that are in a lot of spice mixes, as well as eggplants. They're also going to be in a lot of, but not all, nuts and seeds. Some of them are a bit lower in lectins, so things like flaxseed, as well as walnuts are going to be a bit lower in lectins, but things like peanuts, cashews, sunflower seeds, and chia seeds are going to be quite high in lectins. They're also going to be in ruminant animal products that are conventionally grain-fed. That is because mammals don't have the capacity to fully break down lectins. Poultry does, so this is why it's actually okay if your chicken or duck or turkey is fed some grains, because grains are actually a part of an ancestral bird diet. And so they know how to break down lectins, and so you're not going to get as much lectins in the meat of something like a chicken because they've properly broken down the lectins and it doesn't end up in the meat. But an animal like a cow or a sheep, they don't know how to break down lectins, just like we don't know how to break down lectins. The grains are not really a part of our natural diet, at least in excess. And so if you have a grain-fed cow, there might be some lectin in the meat tissue. So this is going to be the same for dairy as well. This is why if we're eating cow dairy, we always want it to be grass-fed, ideally. Now, there are ways to reduce the amount of lectins that you're consuming without cutting out all of those foods that I just listed. And these are these ancestral preparation methods. So if you're going to eat things like beans, grains, nuts, and seeds, you can soak them overnight and then dump out the water, and this will pull some of the lectins out. You can also sprout things, so you can buy a sprouting lid and put the beans or nuts or seeds or grains in a jar for a few days until the seeds start to sprout a little bit, and that also lowers the lectin content. And then we can also ferment. So this is why if you're going to bake something using wheat or rice flour or any kind of nut flour or anything like that, it can be helpful to mix it with yogurt and leave it in the fridge or even out on the counter overnight in order to allow the flour to ferment a little bit. And this will also lower the lectin content. When we cook things for a long time, that also helps, as well as peeling and deseeding. So most of the lectins are in the skin of the plant or in the seeds of the plant. And so if we can peel and deseed, that will also lower the lectin content. So we can reduce the amount of lectins and see if that supports our digestion. But if you have some serious chronic illness symptoms going on and you are working really hard to heal the gut, you might want to eliminate lectins at least for a period of time, maybe 6 to 12 months. It can be a powerful powerful tool in your healing. So it's not about fearing lectins. Again, a healthy digestive system should be able to tolerate some amount of lectins in the diet. But we do have to understand how food interacts with our body, and we have to be strategic about the way we're using food to help rebuild our body. Your body is incredibly resilient, and you can do an immense amount of healing with the right protocol. We just want to create the best possible environment for your deep and lasting recovery. So if this information was new or helpful, you can leave a comment below and maybe share your experience with eliminating lectins and if it helped any of your symptoms. Let's make one mindful choice at a time, and if you want individualized help for addressing these kinds of symptoms and a personalized meal plan, please reach out and we can help you.